Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We're celebrating Eid Milad Nabi Mubarak to all Muslims around the world. Of course, it's a big day for all Muslims, and of course, as far as the Prophet is concerned, he is he's revered all over the world, and of course Muslims all over the world today are celebrating Eid Miladun Nabi. A little later on we will also be talking about Eid Miladun Nabi and of course as far as Muslims and what it means to us as far as Muslims and the teachings of Islam overall. Before that, we'll also be talking about the political situation in the light of the press conference of the former Prime Minister, Mia Nawaz Sharif Sahab and Maryam Nawaz. And of course, he talked to the media, he spoke about the victimization the Sharif family had endured at the hands of the last government. He spoke about the overall economic conditions as they were left by the last government. He spoke about the judicial system, the way that everyone had practiced victimization against the Sharif family, all of that today on Perspective. I have with me Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who is a political economist. Thank you for joining us today. We also have with us Amir Hussain, who's a columnist and a senior analyst. Thank you for being with us. We'll have other guests as we go along. Niaz Sahab, to start off with you, as far as overall the political situation is concerned, certainly what Nawaz Sharif Sahab spoke about as far as victimization is concerned, he's talked about the death of his late wife, he spoke about his jail time, he spoke about the way the treatment meted out to Maryam Nawaz and him during the time that he was in jail. He talked about his cases. It was in a way the kind of heart-to-heart with the media, with people that we have not seen before perhaps. How do you view it? What are the ramifications of it politically, in your opinion, as far as this news conference is concerned?
Well, I think apart from what he said, I think just the fact that he said all this and it was allowed to be, on different sources, I think it's a very positive. These issues have been around for years and years, and for many years they were and they tried issues. But that there is finally a realization that there has to be a public discussion on all these issues. It's sort of a truth and reconciliation kind of an exercise. So it's really important to have it. Now there are of course similar charges from PTI, but the difference between the charges and PTI means so many credible news sources repeating the same kind of charges that the PMLN has been. So, for example, the European Union report, leading human rights organizations within Pakistan and outside. So, when politician says something, you can't take it on face value. Same thing is repeated by credible sources, and of course, you have to give it weight. So I think many of the charges that he made are absolutely true. The way the whole judicial process was manipulated, the way the political process was manipulated, as very clearly mentioned by the European Union in the election monitoring report as well. Those are very
But
dark.
Nyasa, when we talk about, you're talking about the revelations, you're talking about the fact that judicial process being manipulated or steered, whatever one may call it. What about, we're talking about across the board manipulation. We're talking about an orchestration against the Sharif family. We're talking about, we're not talking about one institution. We're not talking about victimization. It seems to be a long, drawn out, planned victimization, which is what the former Prime Minister talked about. And he also cited proofs of it on occasions that it happened. So then how do will it have ramifications for our political process, in your opinion?
Well, certainly, I think it's already had ramifications. This is sort of, once, all the restrictions have been lifted, that he's in a position to talk about it. We see so many changes already, major institutions promising to, stay out of politics, a lot of, smaller parties that took instructions from certain institutions being given a free hand, which led to the vote of no confidence being successful. So, we are a far cry from where Pakistan was politically just about, say, 9 months ago. To see
But you
change.
just mentioned, Nyasab, let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Amir Sab and then I'll come back to you. Amir Sab, Nyasab mentioned just now that some of these allegations are now coming from the other side. And then we're, of course, also talking about this having ramifications for the political process. Do you think that, do you agree with Nyasab when he says that things are changing, and the way that they are changing when this discussion comes to the fore in a way that it has never been discussed like today, that the blatantly, openly, the way that it is now being talked about?
Yes, I agree with Mustafa Saab, Murtaza Saab, because you know that whatever we have seen in the last couple of years, there is a certain transition and a certain change in political thinking at the highest level. The political power stakeholders in the country are trying to redraw the political equation which will work for the country, which will work for bringing stability in the economy, in the political system, which is right now at its lowest in last many years. So I think this is the time. This realization is
You're
actually
saying that
working, and those,
it's a time of change, and it's a in
yeah,
that sense
absolutely.
these revelations will have an impact. I will come back to you. We also have with us Sadiqul Farooq Saab from the PMLN. Ji, Sadiqul Farooq Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, Marukh, Hameed.
Sadiqul Farooq Saab, as far as overall the situation is concerned, Mia Saab, the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif Saab also talked about, he said absolutely not is something that he said he had said. He talked about, for the first time, he gave a clear narrative from the PMLN on this, and he said that this was something and he had said that he would not take dictation, and then it was later usurped by Imran Khan Saab and the PTI. Would you comment on that?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Of course, about nuclear detonation, it was Prime Minister Muhammad Nawaz Sharif who said absolutely not. And I think everyone knows and may recall that at that time US President called him 5 times to desist from detonation. But he said that it is in the interest of Pakistan and for balance of power, it is a must because we need an umbrella for our protection, and we cannot defend ourselves from a country's aggressive designs who is 6 times bigger and has 6 times more weapons, etc. So it was his person who said absolutely not to US President, and this is fact. Secondly, when he narrates his story, it is not just allegations. These are facts. A case was registered and built against Shehbaz Sharif in UK, which after 2 years was declared by the court as baseless, and he was declared innocent. Similarly, broadsheet case, they tendered apology to former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and paid a fine too. And in Pakistan, so many cases were actually fake cases, were fabricated against Sharif family, and one by one, they are being discharged by courts of law. So when he says that we have been victimized, it is not the system which victimized Nawaz Sharif or his family. It is the man in the power who misused his power, misused different institutions like NAB, FIA, etc., to punish, illegally punish Nawaz Sharif and his family. So I think he has narrated facts, while at present, when a case is being built on facts, just see when he declares his assets, and his asset declaration doesn't include 180 to 200 million rupees. It is a case, genuine case. Similarly, election commissions. In election commission, there was foreign funding case. After 8 years, election commission has given a judgment or a report, and it is being investigated by FIA. So these are facts. So on one hand, just allegations by Imran Khan and his leaks.
When we talk about, okay, you're making, I understand you're making a distinction between mere allegations and facts which, are being banked by proofs in the former Prime Minister Mia Nawaz Sharif Saab's case.
Of course.
And Mariam Nawaz and the way that the cases were, she's said clearly, and he's also echoed that, orchestrated, the way that, the whole investigative process was engineered. But I want to let me come back to you. I want to go to Nayab Gohar on this. Nayab, thank you for being with us. Can you hear me? Ji Nayab? I think there's a problem with audio. Ji Nayab, can you hear me?
I can.
Ji Nayab, as far, we've been talking about the press conference by Nawaz Sharif Saab and Mariam Nawaz, and the way he spoke about his experience with the manipulation of, one can call it, as far as the process of investigation is concerned against him, the victimization against him and his daughter throughout while she was in jail, and they were both in jail during a very difficult time when her own mother was unwell, which again, was something that was, commented on in very bad taste until she passed away. And, the victimization continued. We've seen the cases relentlessly being pursued, where every hearing was calling, as far as Mariam Nawaz Sahiba was concerned, she was here, her making sure that she appeared on every hearing. One can of course talk about the harassment in that regard, what judicial harassment, whatever one terms it. But in your opinion, do you think this will have overall, as when it is being said openly now, when it is being talked openly like this, it's going to have the kind of positive impact we need vis-a-vis the investigative process, vis-a-vis the manipulation of it, and the way that it can be used against people, the way it has been indeed used against the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif Saab and his daughter?
Thank you very much, Marukh. I think we need to, I think we're coming to a reckoning in Pakistan's political history, where this is not the first time that an elected leader or a civilian leader has been subjected to a highly compromised legal process. We've seen it happen with, especially in the history of Pakistan People's Party, and with Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto, with her father, with her husband, various members of her party, and then later with Mia Nawaz Sharif as well. So I think that the conversation is now moving towards, we're being open about how politicization of this process is very detrimental to democracy in Pakistan. And I think it's a good thing that candid discussions like this are happening. And particularly, it really puts into question Mr. Imran Khan's entire narrative of honesty and truth. And it just makes it clear that he manipulated and used processes and institutions to victimize and to, enact revenge on his political opponents and to engineer the entire process. So I think that it's important for us to have these conversations, and I think moving forward, to be very honest, in the past, if you just take a a quick glance at political history of Pakistan, this is a common occurrence. So it's only Mr. Imran Khan who's the one who denies it. Especially, he only talks about it when it comes to himself, but he turns a blind eye when he has been the one doing it to others. So I think that this is really a moment of reckoning.
Right. Let me come back to you, Nyasab. In terms of the way that it certainly you spoke about the fact that it is not the system, but at the hands of one person. But do you think it also, in a sense, exposes the manipulation that our system is unfortunately susceptible to and vulnerable to, and the cost which we have seen political leaders like Nayab mentioned, of course, Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto, and now when we look at recently, when we talk about women particularly, we talk about Maryam Nawaz and the victimization that they face when they choose to stand up for their political beliefs. And we've also seen the former Prime Minister and his family facing that. And do you think it will have an impact?
Well, the biggest test would be that this treatment is not repeated now against PTI, because we see these seesaw. Like in the 1990s, there'd be one phase where PPP was suffering all this, and then next phase PMLN would suffer it, and we had four governments in the 1990s. So if there has to be an assurance that these things are ending, then the clearest test would be that these things should not be repeated against the PTI, flimsy cases, and you do see to some extent, like the sedition case, terrorism cases, but then you also see them quickly getting dropped. So the terrorism clause was dropped by the courts, which was not happening previously. So it's important. There is a clear difference. Things are not going so much against PTI
But
as they went.
haven't you seen the kind of restraint, as far as the Tehreek-e-Insaf, as far as chairman is concerned, Imran Khan Sahab is concerned, don't you see the government exercising restraint even when we talk about arrest is concerned, when we talk about, all of those things? It doesn't seem, if you look at it impartially, how do you look at the landscape at now that we have seen, 6 months into the vote of no confidence? Certainly, allegations have been made and allegations are being investigated, which they should be. But, abuse or, the kind of harassment that we saw seems not to be there. Would you agree?
Definitely, there's a huge difference. Like the minister being removed, on a flimsy receivable, people being sent to jail for over a year, 6 months, people like Shehbaz Sharif, Hamza, Khurshid Shah. Here, what you see is, like Shehbaz Gill was sent to jail, but then within a month he was out. So, at least there is some recourse to courts where, they're able to fix things. In the period of PTI, that was not happening. People used to languish in jails for long, but still it's a slippery slope. So I'm just saying it as a caution. The same thing should not be repeated. So there are some concerns that Sindh governor was.
I want to come back and talk more about this, because even Amir Saab, I will go to Amir Saab, even of course, the scale of victimization, the scale of having a loved one pass away and you not being there, and all the things that the former Prime Minister spoke about, all of those things are very real, and the way that he's spoken about them, like he probably has not done before. But the victimization then goes to other leaders. If you talk about the PMLN particularly, other leaders within the party have faced it, families have faced it, and we've seen, Amir Sahib, isn't there a trend, when you see, like even now, the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister of Pakistan, goes to court, I think, one can say nearly once a week, for charges that have been leveled against him. So this is the kind of political landscape that we are talking about.
Absolutely, I think there is certainly some sort of soft corner that comes towards PTI leadership and the PTI government. They are not, and I think government has come in a different circumstances. You know, the economy was down, and then the PDM is a loose coalition, and there is no central authority to take all decisions in one way or the other. But as far as the system is concerned, as far as the political structure is concerned, that needs to be revisited. That needs to be seen. Well, because we see these things keep repeating for every after 5 years. Governments do not complete their tenures. Prime
And
ministers are
Asad,
out
isn't that
for the
one of the
period.
arguments that was made for NAB reform also? Because then it would one of the yardsticks for there has been criticism by the superior courts of this country against NAB. Let me go to Sadiqul Farooq Sahab. I'll come back to you. Sadiqul Farooq Sahab, there has been criticism against NAB and its investigation, its victimization of political leaders. And the reform that came in pursuant to that criticism after the vote of no confidence was also targeted to eliminate that, right?
Actually, if we go and study judgments passed by the apex court, for NAB laws were declared draconian, and it was categorically said that NAB rules are being used to change political affiliations and to victimize opposition. And when, especially the law that, or the clause that NAB just accuses a person and he has to prove him innocent is against Islamic principles, against all known and recognized laws and regulations in vogue in the world. So those changes have been made in the light of Supreme Court judgments and in the light of Constitution. In the past, these NAB and FIA, as I already told you, were misused against opposition. Now, when I say that Constitution is there, laws are there, it is the persons who misuse their powers and victimize different persons, especially the political personalities, on the behest of those who are in power, especially Imran Khan. And different audio leaks prove this, that Imran Khan liked victimization. He ordered for victimization of the opposition leaders.
Let me, Sadiqul Farooq Sahab, I'll come back to you. Nayab, do you think, this Pandora's box of victimization that we are now, that is open now for everyone to see, do you think that it's going to have, and you mentioned, of course, Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto also, but do you think things are now going to change for the better? We of course also have statements, yesterday we saw the Chief of Army Staff speak very succinctly on the fact that there should not be any interference. He said that everyone must act within the purview of their own power that they have, and that all, as far as institutions are concerned, must stay within the ambit of that power, must stay within the ambit of their within the rules and within their own they must not go out from the purview of their own rules and their own the system that is now currently in play, the system that must exist, and it must override all considerations. He was talking to his own people, he was talking to the army itself, but overall all institutions. And when we talk about we talk about the courts, we talk about the army, we talk about across the board. When we talk about the parliamentary process, do you see it getting cleaner? Do you see it getting fairer? Do you see it getting more transparent?
Right. No, absolutely, Marukh. And I think the statements that, the army chief made also point to this. So I think what we need to understand is that there's always been a delicate balance when it has come to, institutional override and institutional balance within Pakistan. What we saw in the last, in the decade between 2008 and 2018 was a corrective sort of course towards institutional balance. We saw transitions from one democratic government to another. We saw less political victimization by the various political actors, less political prisoners, less fabricated cases. So what we have to understand is that while we were on this trajectory to course correction between 2008 and 2018, who was the person who undid this balance of power? Who was the person who further politicized institutions, whether it's the judiciary, whether it's the establishment? Who was the person who brought this imbalance upon us? Who started victimizing political opponents? And the answer simply is Mr. Imran Khan. So I think that given that we know that his party, his ideology is fundamentally undemocratic. His politics is not for the people of Pakistan. It is for him and his populist ideology that he is doing all of this.
Now, do you think that after let's talk about since of course you are on the program and as victimization, when we talk about women particularly, Maryam Nawaz spoke about her experience, and then of course you talked about Benazir Bhutto also. Do you think that in terms of things getting easier, the political landscape becoming easier to navigate is something that we are now moving towards when we are having such frank discussions, and with the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif Saab talk about it the way that he did. He talked about his wife's ailment. He talked about the fact how he wasn't allowed, his daughter wasn't allowed access to his wife at a time. A lot was made of her illness when actually, she was so unwell, and then she later passed away. They were allowed out for a few days and then later taken back to jail. All of those things. Are for women generally also, do you think this will perhaps lead to, and all politicians across the board, when we talk about victimization, it started perhaps from a very high scale to Nawaz Sharif Saab, his daughter, but then it goes down to the very roots of our system. And I think that is something that really, should concern us. As, part of the political process, those things, are we going to be able to make it a safe place for people to express their opinion, to come out and, be political overall?
Right. That's exactly what I was building towards, Marukh. I think that when the chief executive of your government is somebody who believes in victimization, who believes in misogyny, who lied recently in an interview saying that we never victimized women, which was an absolute and bold-faced lie. He did that many times over to women from the PMLN and from the Pakistan People's Party as well. So I think we are back into course correction mode. I'll just give you, short examples. I think others mentioned as well. Just look at how, if you look at the treatment of Shahbaz Gill, for example, his concern in prison was that they're forcing me to eat food. And, when he was picked up, a few members of his party lied and said that they were, unlicensed cars and it happened, secretively, etc. But that was a bold-faced lie. All the due processes were followed. So I think that we are moving towards course correction. If you look at the cases right now, the course of law is being followed, and various institutions are talking about institutional balance and course correction. And as far as women in politics are concerned, who I believe have been one of the most vulnerable groups in Pakistan's political history, we cannot convince women to join politics, to be active political participants, if we do not guarantee their safety and if we do not guarantee their privacy and security. So having a head of state who was a blatant misogynistic person and who lied about not victimizing women, I think we are in a much better place right now, where we have people who acknowledge the fact that women should not be treated this way.
Right. I'm going to go to Nyasab. Nyasab, do you think that, as far as the legal process is concerned, this raises questions for our legal process also? And, I think we've had, you and I in the program over time, even during the last government, we've had discussions on how law reform has been on the agenda. Was one of the things that the former Prime Minister Imran Khan Sahab, spoke about. He spoke about changing systems. He spoke about, the newness of it, the change of it, which doesn't seem to have happened. Do you think that, this is a way of indicating the problems, the loopholes within it, and, we can move now towards it very clearly, very transparently, those changes that are needed? And NAB was maybe that one step that needed to be taken, and then further more steps will perhaps follow.
Well, that's the thing. There are changes, as I said, but will these sustain or not? That's the big question. And, it changes from person to person who's at the top. We saw a period from 2008 to about 2016 when things were much better. And then after 2016, it started going downhill with the way the Panama case was manipulated, and then, 2018 elections. And then it was horrible from 2018 to 2022. Now, there is some course correction. And from what I see, these are not individual decisions, especially within the army. If the army has decided to step back, it's probably a group decision of the top corps commanders, and that's a cohort. So hopefully, even if the next person comes in, he will be of the same mindset. So things might continue for a year. But once you have a completely different cohort and the situation changes, that's how it's been in Pakistan's history for decades now. Little bit improvement, then again, deterioration. But this is the incremental nature of change in a country like Pakistan. So we should be happy that at least for the moment things are better, and make some steps to make sure that it becomes institutionalized. And for that process, people speaking out, talking about all the mistakes, that's all very important. And then, as I said, PTI should also not be, mistreated at the moment. In fact, there is the opposite also. Some people say the system is still soft towards it, and in some ways it is. The 63A decision, the Punjab government decision, but then you also see a little bit with the sedition case. So, and the terrorism case. So it's important that it becomes even-handed for everybody, recognizing that things have never been so bad for PTI as they were for PTI.
The way that we are discussing, the frank discussions, we started from involvement, we started from interference, we started from that, and then we came to the realistic, we saw the word, I'm sorry if I'm missing the word, but as far as Imran Khan Sahab is concerned, the term that he's used for the army. And then, those discussions have now permeated every sphere of life. And that itself is indicative of, I would say change. But I don't know if I'm being too optimistic. What would you say to that?
Well, that's... Who are you talking to now, sir?
G. Nyasa, please continue.
Yeah, I'm saying, that is my hope too. You and I have been having these discussions for years now. But then, there is also Pakistan's history. So I'm cautiously optimistic. But then, let's hope that down the years, 2 years, 3 years, once we have new people in these positions, whether it's going to sustain. And that's where, the role of civil society, the media is also important. They face so many crackdowns under, the PTI government, and, they withstood all that. And part of the reason there is a change is because of, what the politicians did and suffered, but then also because of what the media suffered and the civil society suffered. They continue to, stand up. So that role is very important for the media.
Let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Siddiqul Farooq Sahab before I go to Amir Sahab. Siddiqul Farooq Sahab, one thing I've noticed, and I'm sure you will agree with me as far as the PMLN leadership is concerned. As far as Nawaz Sharif Saab is concerned, Maryam Nawaz is concerned, we've seen them categorically come out and say again and again, they talk about what happened, they relay the events of what happened as far as the Panama is concerned, what happened as far as the victimization in their own lives is concerned, but they're very careful to say that victimization, they don't believe in victimization, they don't believe in harassment, they don't believe in those things being meted out while they are running the affairs, while it is the PMLN doing those running the country, so to speak. Do you think that that itself is a very one can say a very a good way to look at things, in the sense that there is they're conscious of the fact that whereas it can be something that can be done, but they're choosing to clearly, blatantly say that they will not go down that road?
Of course, what has been told by Nawaz Sharif Saab and Maryam Nawaz Sahiba is a painful, factual story. But they categorically said that they don't want to avenge, to take revenge from anyone. So this is a positive change, and I think it needs a reformation overall in the attitudes and actions of all political leaders and political parties. They must take oath and practice following constitution in letter and spirit, and other institutions too. You have referred to the statement given by Army Chief. I think it is a judicious statement, but if it is implemented and followed in letter and spirit, things will get right and things will start moving towards the right direction. Everyone in Pakistan, whether it is an institution, a person, an officer, a leader, should consider the Constitution a sacrosanct book, and they follow it like they follow religion. The things will inshallah get right, and Pakistan will progress and earn greatest repute at world level.
Right. Amir Saab, do you agree with this? Do you agree that, the fact that as far as, after the Army Chief's statement also, that's also a statement that's very open, that's also a statement that's very, transparent. He talks about the fact that, of course, Pakistan's sovereignty is something that can't be compromised on, and the armed forces will always safeguard that. But beyond that, when interference, you start from interference and then you go to neutrality, all of those things. But is it indicative of a shift, in your opinion?
The technology is working, and the society has seen many crises, and now there is a widespread realization that Pakistan needs to, to put on a track which is democratic track, which is a track where all stakeholders, respect the constitutional red lines and they work within the domains. So the crisis will be going away. I think this realization is also coming from all quarters, which is an important development and which is something we should welcome all the time. But having said that, we have to understand that there is a lot of unpredictability. We have seen many times there are good times Pakistan has enjoyed, and then suddenly the system was hijacked many times. And I think this is now. I think what I think that the way Imran Khan has taken the country to a close end, we have to find our solutions creatively. We have to create a kind of dispensation where issues are sorted out at national level, and then the larger issues, the political issues, the economic issues of economy, the issues of international isolation. These are some of the important areas where everybody think that if we come out of these problems, Pakistan will be going on a better track. If it doesn't, then no stakeholder will enjoy the country because it will be an end game for everyone. I think we have to realize, we have to understand that the times are changing, the global scenario is changing, the regional politics is changing, and we are living in an era where economy matters more than conventional security, where economic stability matters more, where political inclusion
But
matters more.
Mirsab, we talk about economic stability, sure, and of course it matters, you're right, it is a post-COVID world, that's also correct. But in terms of economic stability linked to political stability, let me go to Nayab, I'll come back to you. Nayab, the fact that of course we want there to be economic stability, that is something we've seen the Prime Minister say from day one. He said that, I want to bring the state of our economy to a state where it's functional. It's because the inflation is something that is causing concern to the government every day. All of those things are a reality, but then of course its linkage to political stability is something that's also very evident, is something that can't be denied. When we see, and then of course the balance of right to protest, right to expression, freedom of expression, and then on the other hand it's the rallies and the jalsas and then the march, all of those things, those are also realities. So in that kind of a world, how do you see the future when we see Imran Khan Sahab again and again saying that there will be a long march, saying that he will bring his people out, saying that that there are threatening or at least things being alluded to the fact that there will be a march that the government should be concerned about. Those things are being said even now.
Yeah. So firstly, Marukh, I think you're absolutely right. I think neither the economy nor the political situation can be looked at in. I'd also add social stability into this as well. I think economic stability, political stability, social stability, they're all inextricably linked, and they all link to our democratic fabric of society. When political parties will not act unnecessarily, when they will not do politics over sensitive issues of the economy, authority, of social sentiment, that is the only way we will achieve equilibrium within society. As stated before, in the past 6 years, this equilibrium, or reaching that equilibrium, was pushed, towards crisis one antagonist, which was Mr. Imran Khan. He caused not just instability, but political instability, social polarization, divisiveness. So I think even though we're on the course correction route right now, it is absolutely true that he is still trying to finish this project of his. But I think that if you look at the long march and how much he has bluffed about it, to date, I absolutely don't think that he will be able to pose that much of a. His American regime change conspiracy theory has been absolutely debunked. The performance of his governments in KP and Punjab is under contestation right now. His role within the flood situation is absolutely abysmal. And as I said last week as well, he's somebody who enjoys attention so much that if he actually prepared well, he would have been out on the streets already and he would have done it. So I think this is just him playing his political cards, playing his political moves, trying to, cause more instability. But given the fact that we have, mature political parties in office right now, I do not think he poses that threat. And even if he does, it will be dealt with. And I don't think we should allow anyone to play on people's emotions like this anymore.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Nawaz Murtaza, thank you for joining us. Amir Hussain, thank you for being with us. Siddiqul Farooq Saab, thank you for joining us. Nayab Goharjan, thank you for being with us today. As we commemorate the Prophet's birthday today, of course, it's important to reflect on the teachings of the Holy Prophet. And the PM addressed the Nabi conference today. He spoke about, of course, that the fact that as an independent country, the blessings that Pakistan is endowed with, we must do our best to build upon that. We must do our best to build upon the independence that has been given to us, and the teachings of the fact that we can build on the teachings of the Prophet in our political realm, in our day-to-day lives, and perhaps today is a day to reflect on that also. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.